for innovation and value creation. We'll start out with the entrepreneurial perspective. So, what's the nature of entrepreneurship? Well, they're actions that begin at a nexus of lucrative opportunity and of an enterprising individual. So, you have a person who's rather clever, resourceful, and a risk taker who identifies a problem that needs a solution. That's an opportunity. An entrepreneurial opportunity can stem from a new market, something that's emerging, a brand new product or service, a new product in an existing market. That's called creative destruction by Schumpeter, if you're an economics fan. You can create a product or a service that replaces an existing product or service in the same market, or it can be a new product in a new market. Think the iPhone replacing the BlackBerry. That's creative destruction. So really, entrepreneurs are innovators who can identify problems and offer a solution that is innovative and creates value for their potential customers. So how do we start thinking as an entrepreneur in terms of action and that mindset? Well, the McMullen-Shepard model explains how knowledge and motivation influence two stages of entrepreneurial action. As the reading states, stage one is the realization an opportunity exists for someone. So something you've uncovered that perhaps needs a solution. So stage two is determining whether it is an opportunity for themselves. So you see a problem and then you look at your skill set and resources and try to find out a way if you can address it. Sometimes it might be a problem that you can't, really deal with. Space junk floating around and you're a baker. That's not really your field. So you're not going to go into outer space and take care of that problem for someone. But maybe Elon Musk will. So acting on and pursuing an identified opportunity involves entrepreneurial thinking. You have to think outside the box. I hate that cliche. It's said way too much, but perhaps it's applicable in this situation. Maybe you are that baker and for some reason your bear claws can save the world. Who knows? So how do entrepreneurs think? Entrepreneurs sometimes make decisions in highly uncertain environments. Sometimes. They all the time make decisions in uncertain environments with high stakes and immense time pressures. There's really two ways to go about entrepreneurship. In this class, we're going to focus a lot on planning, putting together a business plan. And then when you get out there in the real world, you're going to find that sometimes the business plan doesn't have everything in it, and that's okay. That's okay. It's just a start. It's a jumping off point. Entrepreneurship in many ways is you jumping off of a cliff and building an airplane on your way down. So let's take some time to form our opportunity beliefs. We have to kind of work on our minds here. You need creative mental leaps that are launched from your existing knowledge. One of the reasons why in this class we're having some discussions around some businesses you're interested in is to familiarize one another with what you're interested in and perhaps some skill sets that you have and some potential problems that you can solve that'll create value through innovation. So one thing we do in this country that kind of hinders this creativity is we put a lot of kids into a classroom very early on in their life, and we give them standardized schools, standardized tests. We take a lot of very different people who think differently and say, hey, standardized test. We're all the same, thing. Run over there and climb that tree, and that determines your performance score. In fact, there's a great, I don't know if it's a Far Side or just a meme, but there's a lineup of different animals sitting in front of a teacher's desk, and there's a tree behind them, and there's like a hippopotamus, and it might be an elephant or a rhino, I can't remember, but there's like a snake and a monkey and a squirrel and all these different animals, and the teacher says, run over there and climb that tree. That's your final exam. So, like the squirrel and the monkey's like, all right. But the hippopotamus is looking at, the elephant and all the other animals that, and there's a goldfish in a bowl. That's one of the animals too. I just remembered it. I'll have to send this to the class. But they look at him and say, today's final exam is run over there and climb up that tree. Well, the monkey and the squirrel are like, all right, rock on. But the goldfish is like, what? And the hippopotamus is like, what? So we all have our different strengths. So we have to figure out where we're coming from. And the fact that we can learn from one another because we have strengths and weaknesses is one of the reasons why you're going to work in groups in this class. Is you have superficial similarities, but then you also have some differences that can benefit one another because you're going to have different strengths. So when you're doing the discussions and thinking about joining the group, make sure you're looking at what similarities you have, work ethic, that type of thing, but also what are your differences. So if you have a group that are all marketers but nobody's finance, that's a problem. You're going to have to find someone who can help you put your finance section together when we're working on the business plan. So, but let's back out of that. Sorry, I tend to get distracted on these things. You can look at superficial similarities and structural similarities between the source, so like something in a market and the destination where you want to go with your innovative technology, and help an entrepreneur make these creative leaps. So a lot of entrepreneurship is connecting dots that haven't previously been connected. So how do you take a device and combine two different devices that are already out there in the market and become like the thought leader in developing a new idea? The challenge often lies in making creative mental leaps based on structural similarities, connecting those dots, if you will. People look at the market and say, oh, there's just nothing else new we can do out there. That's not how entrepreneurs think. You just put it together like a puzzle. So what I want you to do is kind of forget about everything you've been told about what it takes to be successful in business. Those are tools that you can use, but I want you to get creative in this class. Now, there's a few kind of core tenets to entrepreneurship that we need to cover for the remainder of Chapter 1. The first one is bricolage. Entrepreneurs often lack resources. They sometimes seek resources from others to provide the slack necessary to experiment, generate entrepreneurial opportunities, and engage in what's called bricolage. I prefer calling this bootstrapping, but bricolage is a word, so it refers to taking existing resources and experimenting. So taking what you have on hand, tinkering, repackaging, and reframing them to be used in a way that they were not originally designed or conceived. In this process of making do, entrepreneurs can create opportunities. This is something like if you're working around the house and you have a problem. Let's say you have a clogged shower drain. And there's so many different options for that. You can get Drano, which is expensive and not necessarily great for the environment, kind of can tear up some things. They make these neat little tools that you can stick down the drain and they'll pull that nasty hair and all the stuff back out. Or you can go to the origin of that tool and unwind a wire coat hanger and stick it down there and take out the stuff. That's actually where that little... I saw one at Lowe's the other day. It's like a little yellow thing that has like these hooks on the end. You stick down a drain and it solves a problem. Somewhere, somebody has a bigger 401k because they thought of that. And where it started was a wire coat hanger. Isn't that wild? I mean, people are making money off that. That's an example of bricolage. Now, sometimes you have to bootstrap that bad boy up, which means like, how do you finance your venture? Well, if you have an idea like that, you can take different things around the house, figure out a way to put them together, and then offer a solution that people didn't even know they needed for a problem they most have. So there's also effectuation. It's a casual process that involves thinking of a desired outcome and then coming up with a plan to achieve that outcome. So it's kind of like goal setting. So the effectuation process looks at what a person has and then selects from several possible outcomes. So you do a survey of all your resources and say, how can I put this together to solve a problem, create value, and innovate? This allows entrepreneurs to think in highly uncertain environment. When you're in the creative phase of entrepreneurship, there's never a bad idea. Just put it all down on paper and you'll have everything you have right there in front of you, and you start putting it together like a puzzle in reverse. So most managers need to take an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's one thing people need to understand. Companies love hiring entrepreneurs. Why? Because they're problem solvers. If you can give me a company full of problem solvers and not problem creators, I can have a successful company, because you'll always come up with solutions to different things that come up. So developing this mindset of effectuation, of problem solving, is highly desirable in the industry. So to do this, managers must attempt to make sense of opportunities. You got to understand the problem. You got to understand how it can be solved. Know everything about it before you go about Say, hey, every problem is an opportunity to create a solution. That's your mindset. You need to constantly question so managers must constantly question their dominant logic. So again, we've all been put in this little box and saying this is what you want to do. You want to think outside of that box. Again, there I go with that doggone saying, but here we go. And then, as a manager, you want to revisit what you think is true about the markets and firms. If you think about innovative thinkers, it's one of those things where you're just like, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. It's just that they see things differently, kind of go against the flow. Don't be afraid to take a step back in your day and get out of just the routine and start saying, hey, I'm stuck doing all this paperwork. Is there a better way to do this paperwork? You never know. You might come up with $1 million idea that a company will want to buy from you. So you need to have some cognitive adaptability. So to be good at effectuation, you must have cognitive adaptability. This is the extent to which entrepreneurs are dynamic, flexible, self-regulating, and engaged in sensing and acting on changes in their environment. So can you just go with the flow, or can you take a step back and say there might be a better way of doing this? Cognitive adaptability is reflected in an entrepreneur's ability to reflect upon, understand, and control their thinking and learning. See, there's that critical thinking again. You take a step back, make sure you understand everything about a problem, and then start identifying a solution based on the resources you have. Now, again, if you can solve a problem, that's value. But generally speaking, you have to be pretty innovative and have limited resources. All right, I'm an economist by training. Resources are limited, okay, and people think of money, they think of inputs. Your most important input that you can never get back is time. All right, so make sure you're using your time wisely and that you're working smarter, not harder. Oh boy, I just keep with these sayings; they just keep coming out. I guess maybe they're sayings because, well, they're true. So learn to be more cognitive by asking questions in 4 areas. Comprehension questions: do I understand what the issue is? Connection tasks: how can I put different resources together? And that includes people. How can I put together my group for this class to make sure I have someone who's really good at marketing, someone who's really good at leading the whole project and project management, somebody that can handle the financial part, and someone who can help us bring it all together. So that is a winning strategy, and strategic tasks are very important when you're thinking cognitively. And then as you're going through the process, but when you're through doing a project, or when you're through trying to solve a problem, reflect back, get that feedback loop, and say, what went well? What didn't go well? What can we do better next time? That is cognitive adaptability. So those able to increase cognitive adaptability can adapt to new situations, be creative, and communicate their reasoning. So what's the intention to act entrepreneurially? So again, this is a chapter on entrepreneurial mindset. So entrepreneurial action is often intentional. It's something that you set aside some time in your day just to think differently, just to say, okay, here are my problems. How do I solve them? Get out a piece of paper, start drawing. I love when people doodle in class. A lot of people say, oh, you're distracted. I do not love when you're on your phone. But I do love when people start doodling in class, because they're putting whatever's in their mind on paper. And sometimes you can come up with an idea like that. And sometimes when you're doodling, you're thinking about what something else is being said in lecture, and you can start to make connections in your brain. It literally works that way. So when actions are feasible and desirable, there are stronger intentions to act. So if you have something you're passionate about, find a way to weave what you're studying into business into that, and you'll never work a day. So entrepreneurial intentions can be explained the same way, the same thing. Think about when you're in a creative phase, you're doodling, you're trying to put together resources that you have, things you enjoy to do to solve a problem. So entrepreneurial self-efficacy, a lot of these enunciated words here, refers to the conviction that one can successfully execute the behavior required. This is a habit. So it takes days to create a habit. So you have to put these things together, and it's something that, I feel like I'm rambling now, but I'm just trying to take what I've done in my head and put it on this slide right here. It's a habit. It's kind of like exercise. It's pretty difficult to start, but then you kind of get used to it, and then you see the results, and then you want to keep doing it. Thinking entrepreneurially is the same way. So back to the slide. I apologize for the diversion. I'm going to do that. Just get used to it. You have what's called perceived desirability. Refers to an individual's attitude towards entrepreneurial action. Entrepreneurs are kind of, I don't know. People say, are they born? I think some are, but I think some people just get kind of fed up with the normal, day to day, and really want to think, or something kind of strikes them. The Lord gives them some sort of inspiration for how to solve a problem, and you start to desire that. And I think the Lord puts it on a lot of people's hearts to be more entrepreneurial. So, again, this is a chapter on mindset, so it feels a little obtuse or out there. It's okay. We're just getting started. Okay. So, perceived desirability is the degree to which the entrepreneur has a favorable or unfavorable evaluation of potential entrepreneurial outcomes. Now, an entrepreneur's background or characteristics, education, there's a broad knowledge that allows discovery for potential opportunities and assists in adaptability. I have been involved in quite a few of pitch competitions with entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial classes, entrepreneurial clubs, and man, people come from all over. There'll be, your kind of traditional business type folks, but there'll be people from the medical field. There'll be people from music. There'll be people from education and communications. And they've all identified a problem within their sector, and they have such a broad educational background. I mean, I've met entrepreneurs that were 8th grade dropouts. I've met entrepreneurs that were PhDs, lawyers, doctors, everything in between. So what matters is your education experience provides transferable knowledge and skills and problem-solving ability. So you've identified a problem in one sector and think it may have a broader impact not only on that sector but society as a whole, then you're onto something as an entrepreneur. Age, entrepreneur age reflects the entrepreneur's experience. So if you're a little younger, there's less experience. You're a little bit older, there's a little more. Generally speaking, entrepreneurs are 22 to 45 years old when starting their career. Colonel Sanders was much higher than that when he started KFC, so he did all right. So there's literally no age where you can, stop or start being an entrepreneur. It's anywhere in there. Work history. A lot of people think work history plays a role in growth and success of a new venture. People get an idea out of their work. People get fed up with their work, and that kind of makes that desirability to move on to something entrepreneurial. There's a whole lot of reasons. One of my first real job, if you will, I worked as a market analyst for Michelin North America, and they employed, and they didn't really call them entrepreneurs, but they were entrepreneurs. They were problem solvers. They were a department of entrepreneurs who worked at the headquarters just solving problems. So sometimes your work environment, you can be an entrepreneur within there. In fact, like I said before, that's very desirable. So, so your work history, experience, say in financing, product development, manufacturing, distribution, marketing are all particularly important. I've already gone through a few of the introduction discussions that we've had, and there is a wide variety of work history in this class. So I'm kind of looking forward to hearing what you guys say about your business ideas next. So. Role models and support system. Role models an important factor in influencing an entrepreneur's career path. It can be relatives. It can be successful community entrepreneurs, teachers, you name it. These people can serve as mentors before and after the launch of a venture. Man, I tell you, there used to be this little thing called Rolodex. Now we have them all on our iPhone or your smartphone. Your network determines a lot of your net worth. So the people you know. Lean on them. You need what's called a board of directors. Some people who can help you as an entrepreneur. Like, hey, you've been there. What do you think of this issue? And chances are they've been there and they can tell you what they think about that issue and give you some tips to where you don't have to make as many mistakes. Now, are you going to make mistakes as an entrepreneur? You bet. You bet you are. But the only failure as an entrepreneur is the failure to learn. Always remember that. The only failure as an entrepreneur is the failure to learn. You're going to learn so much when you get out there and get active on these things. So, as your contacts expand, they form a network with density and centrality. The entrepreneur should establish a moral support network of family and friends, people who kind of pull them for you, that are encouragers. Unfortunately, sometimes we have, a network of family and friends that kind of say, "Oh, you don't want to do that; it's too risky." That's because they're too scared. Okay, find you some people who are going to encourage you. All right, get that Bible quiet time too, because the Lord will speak to you through the Word, and He will. Man, business is ministry, have no doubt. I've been reading my Bible before and had some business ideas, and Jesus has said, "That's not such a good idea." And turn around, the Holy Spirit said about another idea. Yeah, maybe check that one out. So make sure that's part of your moral support network. The entrepreneur also needs advice and counsel obtained from members of a professional support network. Generally speaking, your chamber of commerce. There's usually a lot of areas will have a business incubator. There's some free resources out there. The Small Business Association through the federal government has some free resources that can give you support for little to no cost. Examples here are mentors. SBA does a lot of that. Business associates, suppliers, trade associations. Suppliers and trade associations want you to be successful because they want you to join them. They want you to buy from them. And then other personal affiliations as they relate to your specific business venture. So, networks, again, entrepreneurial activity is embedded in networks of interpersonal relationships. Your network is your net worth, okay? These networks offer, business speaking, your net worth in God's eyes is priceless. So keep that in mind. Go be an entrepreneur. If you fail, Jesus still loves you, baby. All right. These networks offer access to resources, assistance in discovering, exploiting new opportunities, taking advantage of them, opportunities to exchange goods and services, and perceive feasibility that strengthens the entrepreneurial intentions. The best thing you can do if you have an idea for a business or a service, okay? So for a product or a service, rather. So if you got an idea for a business, is to get out there and talk about it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want anybody to steal my idea." If you can't tell anybody your idea, you're going to spend a lot of time working on something people might not want. I've come up with business ideas, especially when I was younger, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." And I spent like 6 months planning the thing and never asked one of my potential customers. Oof. 5 minutes into my first conversation, I realized it wasn't going to work. Okay, and then they gave 10 minutes in, they gave me some feedback that I wish I'd had 6 months earlier. So in this class, you're going to reach out. Once you pick your business, once you get in your groups, you're going to reach out to some of your networks, some of potential customers, and get some feedback immediately. If you can't tell them about your business idea, it's not a good sign. Now, sustainable entrepreneurship is entrepreneurial action that can both sustain and develop. Sustainable entrepreneurship is focused on preserving nature, supporting life and community in the pursuit of opportunities to bring future products and services into existence for gain. Those with greater knowledge of natural environment are more likely to notice changes in the environment. So a lot of people go a lot of different directions with entrepreneurship. Everybody thinks, "Oh, you're just trying to become Apple." No, there's a thing called social entrepreneurship. There's a thing called sustainable entrepreneurship. If you're going into ministry and you're getting an MBA from NGU right now, and you're going to go into the ministry, guess what? You're a social entrepreneur. You're trying to see opportunities to serve and better people's lives and create human flourishing. Well, that's the same thing as a food truck that opens up down the road from a construction site that offers nourishing, healthy food options. You're offering to solve a problem, and by bringing, say, the food to them, that's innovative. You're offering to solve a problem by bringing the salvation to them. Thus, that's social entrepreneurship. Sustainable entrepreneurship has what we call in a natural world a kind of an environmental aspect of it. Let's say you are a taco truck that serves fish tacos, and you want to only serve fish that was legally caught and sustainably caught, so it doesn't overfish the oceans or something like that. I don't know, I'm getting a little abstract out there, but sustainable entrepreneurship. I don't care what product you're going into, you want it to be sustainable, something that you can keep coming back to time and time again. Entrepreneurial impact. I'll do this slide and then let you go. Entrepreneurs can generate economic wealth for themselves, but their impact of development can be far greater. What I would challenge you and add to this is you want to create human flourishing. You want to create meaningful jobs for your future employees. You want to create a meaningful and impacting life that financially allows you to bless others. But most of all, you want to create a mission for your organization that is God honoring. So not only that, entrepreneurial impact on the world, it can generate economic, environmental, and social gains for others, including job opportunities and revenue for the government. Throw the government in there. You got to pay your taxes, I guess. Environmental gains can be reduced. Air pollution. If you innovate, if you find a way to make steel that pollutes the environment less, and your steel is great, people are going to want to hire you. Okay. You can increase drinking water quality. I think of the filter straw that's used in a lot of places around the world now that allows people to get water that filters out parasites. I think of the portable well drills and that type of thing that helps third world countries and otherwise improve living conditions. So there are some social gains that can be that can help. Let's say you have a mobile medical unit and improves child survival rates in Uganda. You can have longer life expectancy. If you have a medical entrepreneurship and advancement or innovation, please help me with this education. Help me to innovate. Find a way to that makes my life easier in this course. Now, that's a great idea for your group project. And I can promise you I'll get great if you make my life easier, because how I compensate you in this class is points, so grades. Things that create equal opportunities, etc., etc. So the entrepreneurial impact is not just, hey, I want to make money. All right. The entrepreneurial impact is, hey, I want to help people. Okay. And if you want to help people, I don't care what you're doing. If you help people, if you solve a problem, if you do it really clever, another word for clever is innovate, and you create value, you will win. So that is just a large overview of Chapter 1 on the entrepreneurial perspective. You really need to make sure you do the reading. If there's some delay in you getting your book, please let me know. If you look in the course materials area, I did produce the instructor's manual for the first few chapters to help you bridge the gap. But it's nothing like the reading, and the reading's so much better. So make sure you're getting that in. This is just a light overview. I'll see you again in Chapter 2.